Alright, so to a pot I'm going to add 1 cup of quinoa. And to get rid of some of the bitterness, we're going to go ahead and wash this. Another way to get rid of the bitterness, if you don't want to wash it, is to toast it on low heat until it starts to turn like just a slight brown. And then you can add your water if you don't want to wash it. But I'm going to go ahead and wash mine and use my strainer and strain it. So I'm just going to toast mine just a bit. Even though I wash it, I'm still going to toast it. So I'm adding a teaspoon of oil, and I'm just using whatever oil I have at hand, but you can use whichever one you prefer. And then I'm just going to let this get nice and toasty just for about a minute. And this will really help to get rid of some of the bitterness because quinoa does carry this bitter taste. So that sound is what you want to hear. Like see how they're jumping, almost like popcorn's popping? They're toasted. The way you know that you're doing it right is it's supposed to give off this nutty-like perfume. So if it almost smells like nuts, then you know you're on the right path and you're definitely doing this right. So right now mine smells just like nuts. Alright, so mine is done toasting, so now I'm going to add 2 cups of water. And then we're just going to mix that in. So you can season your quinoa any way you like, it's really up to you. So I'm just going to add a half a teaspoon of black pepper into that. I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of salt. And this is optional, but I'm adding a teaspoon of curry powder. You can also use turmeric. So because I'm just seasoning this my way, I'm just going to add a bit of parsley into this because I just love parsley in almost everything now. Alright, so our quinoa is looking good. And you're about to just watch all the magic happen as these little seeds, as you can see, they're starting to, come on, open out. And that's the quinoa cooking. Done. So we're going to cover this now, and then you want to turn your stove down, and I'll see you guys in about 15 to 25. Alright, so I have my chicken all washed and ready to go now. So now I'm going to just season it up with some all-purpose seasoning salt. I'm going to add a touch of browning sauce. And lastly, before I rub that in, I'm going to add some white sugar. This is just 1 tablespoon. And we're going to begin to massage that thoroughly onto our chicken. I have my oil preheating. So once your oil is nice and hot, you want to go ahead and brown each piece of your chicken now. So they're just going to catch color, just crisp up just slightly in your oil. You're going to add all your chicken in there. So while my chicken is browning, I went ahead and cut up some fresh mushrooms. Whatever you want to put in this dish is quite optional. So I cut up some fresh mushrooms and have some thyme in here, some sweet peppers and onion. And you're also going to need chicken broth for this recipe, and we're going to make some dumpling spinners in the end to add to it. Alright, so it's been approximately about 7 minutes for my chicken, so I'm going to go ahead and turn them over. And you're going to let the other side get nice and brown like this side. Like, that's perfect. Our quinoa is looking really good. Look at that. The water is simmered down nicely, and now the water is just slowly drying out. So after 5 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and add my seasoning right into there. So following that, you don't have to do this step. This is just optional because I like it and I want to, but I'm just going to go ahead in my spice cabinet and I'm just going to add a variety of spices here. There's no exact measurement, it's just how much you want. So I'm just adding a bit of oregano. I'm adding some basil. I'm adding a bit of dill. I'm adding some bay leaves to this. Like I said, you do not have to do this step, but this is basically just how you learn out new recipes and stuff. I'm adding a little bit of celery. This is what it looks like. It's just like dried celery in a bottle. I'm adding the smallest touch of ginger powder. I'm adding some parsley to this. Last but not least, I'm adding a little bit of curry powder. This was pretty much like half of a teaspoon. And then with all that goodness, we're going to mix this right into our oil now. Oh my goodness, that smells so scrumptious right now. It smells really good. After you're done that, you want to go ahead and add your chicken broth. You can add anywhere from about 2 cups to 2.5 cups, depending on how much you want. And then you want to turn your stove up now and bring this to a boil. And then you're going to turn it back down once it starts boiling. So just to go with the color of the sauce, I'm adding a half a teaspoon of browning sauce to this, just to darken up the sauce a little bit, because I want it a little darker than it is. And then we're just going to mix that in. Like, that's perfect. Alright, so let's check on our quinoa now. And you can go ahead and mix it around if you like, just to make sure that the top gets a nice even cook. So you want to stir that in. And the water has dried out nicely. Look at that. And then we're just going to cover that back and give it another 5 minutes or so. So our water is boiling now. So now what I'm going to do is add a half a teaspoon of salt. I recommend you add your salt gradually if you need it, because you might have already over seasoned your chicken and you definitely don't want to over salt your pot. And then we're going to cover this and let this boil down on medium heat for about, we'll say anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes, but we'll come back in between to add the last of our ingredients. Alright, so 20 minutes is up and my water has dried out very nicely. Look at that. So now what I'm going to do is make my spinners, and this is going to help to dry up the rest of that gravy and just thicken it up just a bit. You don't have to add this if you don't want to. This is quite optional. So basically what you want to do is just pinch off a piece of dough, and then within your hands you just want to begin to roll it, and then it will make spinners, and you just drop them into your pot and that's it. So after you added that, you can go ahead and just mix those in. Be careful you don't squish your dumplings. And then you're going to give this about 5 minutes before you add your mushrooms, because mushrooms cook very fast. They don't need a lot of time to soak up all those juices. Alright, so it's been about 5 minutes. So now I'm going to go ahead and add my mushrooms to that. If you don't like mushrooms and you have something else you want to add, you can definitely add that. And we're going to mix that in. Look how good that looks. And then that's pretty much the end of your dish. You're going to let this cook for about another 5 to 10 minutes on low heat, and then it's pretty much done and you're ready to serve. Look at that. Alright guys, gotta go. Mommy duties.